So after 9 months, I've managed to get the Novablast 3 up and over the 300-mile mark. How's it holding up? How's the wear and tear? And how does it compare to its predecessors? Well, today we're going to dive in and find out. So my love affair with the Novablast started with the original version, and they became a select shoe that managed to get up and over the 200-mile mark. And in fact, the version 1 was 400 miles, the version 2 was 500, and now with version 3, we've hit 300 miles. So today I want to dive in and share all the ins and outs of this shoe, the wear and tear, how I've been using it, why it was shelved for so long and now back in the rotation, and go through all of that stuff so you guys can see how it's holding up after 300 miles. If you're excited for today's video, guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, and of course subscribe to the channel for weekly running content. Let's dive in with the wear and tear. Actually, let me very quickly explain before the wear and tear, because there is stuff to show you on this, why I put this down for so long. I put it down for a few months, and that's simply because I was working on cadence during my marathon training leading up to April's marathon, and I found that this shoe was a little bit of a hindrance when it came to cadence due to the softer midsole. The Novablast is an incredible shoe. It's absolutely amazing and I love it. But when you're 6'6", like I am, a taller runner, and you're trying to get those steps per minute up, this shoe didn't help. It doesn't help, and I still find it now. But the difference between now and then is that it's become more natural now for me to run with quicker steps per minute, and I find that I can slot back into this shoe, but then slot back into another shoe and get my steps per minute up. Whereas back when I was really focusing on it in December, January and February, I was finding that if I would get into this shoe and I would get a little bit sloppy with that, I would even find getting back into a firmer shoe, I'd struggle to get those steps per minute back up again, and I would drop back. As an example, this shoe I would often run at 160, 161 cadence, whereas other firmer shoes might be 164, 165. And those 4 steps a minute really make a difference, especially when you're a taller runner trying to become more efficient. And I then find I'm running this, drop back down to 160, 161, and then get back into a firmer shoe, and it would still stay around that low 160 mark. Now I find that I can chop and change between the two and be efficient in both of them. Even though my steps per minute is still a little bit lower in this, I find that I can get back into a firmer shoe and get those steps per minute back up. It was a real trial and error thing. I found that I finally got it into my brain that I can now run in the mid 160s, and it's so much better and more efficient for me. But this shoe wasn't helping when I was trying to train my brain. So that's the reason why I shelved it for a while, but now it's back in the rotation and the miles are ramping up. So let's dive into the wear and tear. There's 2 notable things that I want to share with you about this shoe with the wear and tear. Otherwise, it's holding up really well. Now, in the 200-mile mark, I showed a very small hole at the back of the shoe. It's on both of them, and they just started to appear. Well, it's getting bigger and bigger. This is something that happened in my Novablast version 1 quite early on. In fact, actually, probably around the same time as this shoe. But it didn't make any difference to the ride itself, and it didn't make any difference to the shoe itself. I just found that it was there, it appeared, and it was a bit annoying. But other than that, didn't make any difference to the ride of the shoe. And the other thing is the outsole wear, which I'll show you shortly. The rest of the upper is holding up really, really well. No snags, no frays, no tears. And as always, the Novablast, with its roomier, wider toe box, is still really, really comfy. Good lacing system, everything's holding up well. The midsole is still as soft and bouncy as it was, just like the 1 and 2. There is no deterioration in performance there. I'm really, really happy with how the midsole's holding up, and it is feeling really good. The main wear and tear on the outsole, and we know this with the version 3 compared to the 1 and 2, is that they downgraded the outsole rubber on the shoe so that we have slightly less I was going to say aggressive then, slightly less durable rubber on the outsole, and I am finding some of the areas now are going quite bold with the tread, up here in particular and in and around this middle section here. But the areas that you'll notice are really being chewed up is around this exposed midsole here and here. Again, no detrimental performance effects with that, but it is very visual and you can see it. This isn't something that I suffer with in version 1 and 2. And I don't think that if you guys are suffering with this, it's going to make, just to be rest assured, it's not going to make any difference on performance, but visually it does make a difference. The outsole rubber on this version, I believe, is thinner, so this exposed midsole is getting more ground contact time than the previous 2 versions, and that's why I'm finding a lot more scuffing and deterioration around this section. There's a few other areas here and here, but it's mainly up in this front section. I'm a midfoot runner, so I'm landing very much in the middle and then toeing off there, hence why this is getting the the most wear and tear around there. But other than that, those two sections, the heel and the forefoot area there, it's holding up really well. So how have I been using this shoe since the last 200 mile update? Well, when I shelved it, it was in and around that 220, 230 mile mark. And I've only picked this shoe back up for the last 3 weeks, and I've now got it up and over the 304, I think, to be precise. So it's now got a load more miles in it over the last 3 weeks, and it will continue to do so. As I said in the intro, it is one of those elite shoes that gets the lucky treatment. I test a lot of shoes here on the channel, probably not as many as you guys would like, because I know I always get told to test more shoes. I do try now to test more shoes that I'm going to utilize in training. I just feel like with reviews, I can give a much more honest approach, because I'm using it for a genuine, rather than just buying a shoe, taking it for a few runs and reviewing it and never using it again. I do try and get shoes that are going to work for me during that training block. And speaking of which, the Takumi Sen 9 is in for testing for this 10K training block. That should be the next video coming on the channel. So for me, using this shoe, it was just a case of wanting to get more easy and moderate miles in it. I haven't put any more workouts in it. I haven't done anything particularly faster. I do find I have better easy run shoes because I feel this is so light now. Moderate running is this thing's specialty, moderate or steady, whatever you want to call it. I do find it is the best for that. I enjoy it mostly for those up-tempo, do you want to call it, runs. Not quite marathon pace, not easy, somewhere in the middle. I have done some easy runs over the last 3 weeks in it. Very, very enjoyable. But I find that I often go too fast in this shoe, and that's a classic trait of the version 1 and version 2 as well. It's just a shoe that makes you want to move. So I find that sweet spot is around that moderate area, and that's where I've been using it mostly during these last 3 or 4 weeks. So do I plan on taking this shoe further? Do I want to continue putting more miles in it? Do I want to take it up to the next milestone? The answer is yes. Whether it will happen, I don't know. I'm enjoying it at the moment, and I will keep putting miles in it unless I get other shoes in that are going to take its place. I feel like with the Novablast, and as I've explained before, there are just a select amount of shoes, I guess, that get up and over the 200 mile mark. There's not many off the top of my head. We're talking all 3 Novablast, Brooks Hyperion Tempo, Brooks Hyperion Max, the Streak Fly's done it. There's only a few because I get some in, and the ones that get this special treatment, shall we say, are the ones that really work for me in my training. They're the ones that I want to lace up. They're the ones that draw me to use them. That's how I work. I run in the shoes that I really want to, not because I want to whack a load of miles in and just drop a review on them. So for me, what's really important with this shoe is that I still want to run in it. And if I'm still wanting to run in it, like in the previous 2 versions, then 400 miles will get there pretty darn quickly. But if something else comes in, like I said, the Takumi Sen 9's now in. That's going to be a workout shoe, and that's going to supersede the Brooks Hyperion Max. Then that will get a ton of miles, and maybe this one will be shelved. Who knows? We'll see. But at the moment, I'd love to try and get it up and over the 400 mile mark. I would feel content if I could get it to 400. Then I could kind of feel like it's really got to that point where I could showcase the shoe in all its glory. But 300 is a blooming good effort so far. I'm really happy to get it there. And as I said, the shoe is really showing no signs at the moment of deterioration. So there's no reason why I shouldn't be putting more miles in the shoe. And this section is where I'd love your feedback. So you tell me what you think of the Superblast. Let's dive into some comparisons and where you should go if your Novablast is coming up for retirement and you want to try another shoe. If you want to stay in the Asics lineup, obviously, as I just said, the Superblast is probably the one to try out. Very similar to this, higher stack, lighter weight, and I've heard such incredible things about it. Trust me, it would have been in here for reviewing if Asics decide to make my size. I'm praising Adidas at the moment because they dropped the Pro 3 last year in my size. They're now dropping the Takumi Sen 9, the Bostons, the Adios. They're all slowly trickling out into 13.5 and 14.5. Thank you, Adidas, for listening. Asics, take flipping note along with some of the other brands and serve us bigger feet runners. It'd be so much appreciated. So the Superblast is where I'm looking for your feedback, but obviously other than that, I believe the Nimbus 25, I'm not sure if it's meant to be superseding this, but I've heard rumours that there will be no more Novablasts. Whether it's true or not, I'm not sure, but I believe the Nimbus 25 came out to kind of replace this, and I gather that if you combine the Nimbus and the Superblast, you've kind of got what the Novablast is offering. They just obviously want you to buy 2 shoes rather than 1, but I didn't say that. If you want alternative brand options, as I said, I'm using this mostly for moderate running, so if you want to stick along that smoother midsole, nice and soft, then as I said, I say it quite a lot really, the Endorphin Speed 3 is a good option. Again, it ticks the same box for me as this. and I really enjoy the speeds for that moderate sort of pace. Or if you're on the firmer end of the spectrum, you guys know what I'm going to say, the Hyperion Max. Again,